Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about the letters of John Adams and Abigail Adams. And before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. All right. So John Adams and Abigail Adams are very interesting individuals. They were very important in helping um, constructing or forming the United States. Helping the United States break away from Britain, from England, and you know, the letters of John Adams and Abigail Adams are very interesting because, first and foremost, they show us how intelligent these people were. They also show us the language that they used at that time. And their letters cover hundreds of topics. Now, not all of their letters are published. I mean, they wrote hundreds, thousands of letters between their lifetimes. Abigail Adams was the first lady to be in the White House because the White House was under construction when John Adams became president. So Abigail Adams was the first lady to live in the White House, and so these people before the United States was even the United States, this couple, their ideas, their beliefs helped founded the United States. They were some key parts of making the United States what it is today. Now, these individuals are Christians. Abigail Adams, there's one letter where she talks about how America should be a country built upon the rock. And this is a very important idea that comes from the Bible. That comes from the Bible about those of us who build our house on the rock, that build our house on God, or going after God, seeking God. Storms may come. Horrible times may come, tempests, whatever, horrible things may come in the future. We know that the rock will be firm, the house will stand still, it won't be destroyed. So these people were Christians, they had faith, and so the early beginnings of America was filled with people deep into Christianity. And so you do have a lot of religious language within these letters, within a lot of writings that help us understand the founding of America. Now, these letters about with John and Abigail, some of them are very personal. It's about their lives. John Adams, he went on a lot of journeys that had to do with politics, war, and military. And Abigail, she was a woman that took care of the home, the farm in Massachusetts, and they kept communicating through letters. And these letters, usually you would think letters would be simple things. How are you doing? What are you eating? Things like that. I miss you, things like that. But these letters between John and Abigail Adams, they're very sophisticated. They're talking about politics, war, strategy, education. Abigail always made sure to tell John about the plight of women, about how women were doing in America, and how the founders and the builders of America, that they shouldn't forget about women and their role in society. They talked about education. There was a specific time when people weren't getting the proper education that they needed. But John and Abigail Adams, they do talk about this within their letters. Um, Abigail will tell John about things that happens back at home on the farm. There's a point in time when John's great horse, died, and Abigail had to write that to John and tell him that, well, his horse died. And there's different things they write to each other. Abigail, everything that happens on the farm, everything that happens back at home, she tells them about it. She's very articulate. She knows how to pick her words and tell him everything that's going on back home, and he shares a lot with her. She gives him advice. Some people will say, some scholars will say that Abigail was ahead of her time, talking about women rights, women voting rights, women education, and yes, she did tell her husband a lot about things like that. And John wrote to her about his plans, his plans for the future, his plans for his family, his children, and plans for the colonies and the future country that they would become, and their separation from England. And so these letters, um, they talk about everything from health, from disease, from war, from politics. It's a married couple speaking about all things, and nothing is left on the table. They really take apart everything, and they share everything. Now, you can imagine that some things were in code, some things were not, very clear, because they had to keep some things private to themselves so that other people wouldn't read what they would say to each other. But these two individuals were very important to the founding of America. Their writings reveal a lot of things. It's not, well, for me, I would say it's not really how you would imagine married couples speaking about politics, but these two individuals were very intelligent. They weren't talking about dinner and things like that. They were talking about the construct and liberties, the freedoms of people, the welfare of their children, the welfare of their country, and where it was going. So that's the main idea of what you get from the letters. The topics that they talk about, again, the topics are politics, war, their own personal health, the state of women, the state of men, education, the plight of the country, of the colonies, the relationship between the colonies and Britain, and their plans, and what the vision for the future was, with the other men and founding individuals that were creating America, or the early stages of what was to become America today. So, in terms of deeper meaning, in terms of analysis here, it's very interesting how the shape that these letters take. Some people look at these letters as love letters, of how this married couple connected, even though that they spend a lot of time away from each other, they still find ways to connect with each other and speak to each other. It kind of also allows us to understand why maybe in that time marriage was lasted longer. People in that time, they married for a very long time, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. um, Maybe it's because of their communication, and maybe it's because of their religion and of their religious beliefs. Back then people had a moral compass. A lot of people were Christians, and so divorce wasn't just divorce. It had something to do with your life physically, your life socially, and your life spiritually. It wasn't something that's simple than just people separating. And so you can see that marriage meant different things, meant something totally different at that time to people. So sometimes people look at these letters as love letters, and the connection between a husband and wife, and how they loved each other, and how they were open and shared information with each other, and how tender and loving that they were towards another. So you can look at that, just like you can look at that, kind of like the connection between two married people. But at the same time, there's more to it. There's more to it than that. The political angle, the political angle, and the intersections between their family life, and their family life and their political beliefs. That's very interesting. That's very interesting, because it gives you insight into how, even when John Adams becomes president, you can see that his wife probably had influence on his thinking. You can see that he truly considered what his wife said, and his responses, how they respond back to each other. So when she says something, he does take it into consideration. So that's something that you can see throughout the letters, because the responses, he's not just like, waving his wife off. John Adams, he's really taking everything into consideration that his wife tells him. So there's a husband and wife connection, a love, the reality of their love and how it existed through letters. Their intellect shows through these letters, and even though at this time we know that women weren't getting the best education in the colonies, but Abigail is very brilliant, very intelligent, to the point when she's talking to her husband, it's not just him telling her what to do or what to think. She's really bringing up some points that we can say are controversial, or that we can say, well, not controversial, but we bring up some points that you have to think about, bringing up some points that you have to consider, and it's things that people will highlight today about Abigail Adams, that shows her as something more important, extremely important to women's the place of women within America today. So there's different angles. There's a lot of letters, but generally that's the idea of these letters. The relationship between John and Abigail Adams, what they talked about, and how they helped shape the country to what it is today. So that's all I had to say about the letters. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.